Hello, everybody. I'm hoping that this is coming through all right. I'm gonna check on YouTube quickly because I hit the pause button and I can't tell if it like properly did stuff. Or Elham, can you hear me? If you can give me a thumbs up. Yeah, okay, we're good. So, welcome everybody to the December Rust Gamedev Meetup. It's actually crazy how fast the year goes by. I think it's kind of cool when you run something monthly because then you can see stuff happening or like break it down, but still it goes by very quickly. I just wanted to mention we do have blog posts about the previous meetups. I've been trying to put these together because first of all, you can see the different talks that have been going on, get some links to the speakers and what they've been doing, but also because I've been putting together specific uploads for each one. And so each one will have its own YouTube video. You can go check it out and then comment on that anything or just like watch it if you haven't seen if you want to watch particular ones. And so try my best to keep up on this. So if you wanted to go check out the previous meetup, you can do that. But I also want to mention we did put out the Game Dev newsletter for July. This one we've been sitting on for a while, and it needs some finishing touches. But because of recent reorganization, we are quite behind in months. And so I think the current plan is that we still do August, September, October, and I guess November right now. So several months worth of catching up. But we do have to do a decent amount to get back on the train for that. And so keep an eye out. It'll be a bit difficult to do it retroactively, but we're going to try to get caught up. So with that being said, we are here today to do the Game Dev Meetup. We have three different products we're going to be talking about today, or rather seeing from the developers. And so without further ado, we will be back in just a minute. Oh gosh, where's the button? Here we go. All right, so we are back with Elham, who's going to be giving us an update on how the Blue Engine's been going.
Hello, everybody. How's it going? Hope everyone is having a great December this year. This year was one of the best years in my life, and we have a lot of progress done, except for me because I had exams in my finals. But the community was not silent. They have been working with the engine to build new stuff, which is something that has never been done before since the engine's birth. So I'm really excited to show up some of them. We will go over the table of contents. So we have one game here, Sailors of Oleth. It's a 2D pixel art game. And we also have scripting bindings, which is something that haven't been done before because the engine has not received any scripting language support before. And we will be discussing the future plans. So let's get started. Sailors of Oleth. I don't think I can play the videos, can I, Forrest? There is a video on the slide.
I'm not
Can we
sure
play?
how it would get uploaded. And also, so if you send me the link to the video, I could try streaming it
Okay.
separately, but I don't know if audio would come through properly.
No,
Give it a
it's
try though.
not a problem to have no
Okay.
audio. It's just video. I'll upload it on the Discord too.
Sounds good. Perfect.
Well, then
Yeah,
we'll
I'm
go to
entirely
the
sure.
next slide then.
Perfect.
So the scripting bindings for language support. So the engine now have scripting language support, which is something that I did not think was possible by the way the engine was structured. But one of the community members, Scorm, was able to bind the engine with his language, which is called InScript. This is the sample code of the scripting language that he have, which you'll be able to do anything you want with the engine normally using Rust, but now using scripting language. So this opens a lot of doors for the engine and a lot of more support for things like hot reloading or having plugins, modding support, things like that. I have tried adding scripting language support before, but the engine was not ready. So I think now is, and we'll be seeing a lot more language being added and binded. And yeah, that is it. We can go to the video. This is a 2D pixel art game by Pablo, which he has made the entire tiling system and physics and everything by himself. We do not have really good physics system implemented or tiling system, so he done the entire thing himself, and he made the whole structure, which will be releasing soon on GitHub. I do not have links for it yet because it's private, but that is his progress on the game, and the asset and everything else will be credited to him and the place that he got in it. As you can see, it's not perfect. There are black lines on the tiles, which is entirely the issue of the engine itself, and we'll be fixing it soon. But this is the progress of showing that games can be built using the Blue Engine, especially pixel art games, and having the pixel perfect sizing to them.
Awesome. I'll throw it back over to you.
Thank you. And yeah, that was done by Pablo. So that is his tag on the community server. And this was by Scorm, which is the language support the language and script support. And moving on, that was the two community supports that was big this year. We had a lot of new members on the Discord server that were new to Rust and possibly new to game development, but were choosing Blue Engine over the other engines. And the biggest thing that they liked for the engine was its lightweight nature and not having a lot of functionality built into it. So people seems like they want to build things themselves. So that includes the mechanics and the parts of the engine that they desire, so like tool chains. So that was surprising for me, but the people loved it, so they joined the community server. And if you love it, you'll love Blue Engine. And for the future plans, we have some of them. Video tutorials, which is something I haven't done before, which I want to do. They'll be presented on YouTube and possibly the other platforms, maybe. These will include the video game development of a whole game using the Blue Engine and other functionalities that the engine may have. We'll be having written blogs, both in English and other language that may come along. I'm not sure where to post them. Maybe I'll find somewhere like Medium or have my own hosted on GitHub pages. But there will be blogs that you can follow along and build stuff using the engine. These will be updated after every major release. So because it's pretty hard to write tutorials after breaking changes. We'll be having skeletal animation support, which is pretty much experimental right now. I'm working on it hard and I'm really not good at it. But skeletal animation is something I've really wanted for a long time. It's the last thing that I need to add to give the engines a proper game development support, even though it is not core of the library, but it will be added to utilities, utility crate. So you can use a skeleton animation there to make 3D games or 2D games however you want and import the models and animation from Blender or anything that supports Collada. Moving on, we will have better lighting. It's another pain point of the engine, which we didn't have really good 2D or 3D lighting. It was really basic blend fong lighting. So we'll be working on adding more lighting support and also things related to it, for example, sign distant field and ray marching. We'll have better batching support. The way the engine is structured right now is that everything is added at once, so there is no structure to it. So there will be plans on batching support to have batches of the objects to relieve the CPU of having the performance bottleneck, basically, and also a way of tree structures, which is something really good to have when using models from outside. For example, importing GLTF models. The tree structure will be plugin, of course. It will be providing a way that you can group things by parent and children structure, the objects basically. And we'll have more API exposed. So there are a lot of things on the inside of the engine that is not exposed. And those include like very core things. For example, the first render pass that is used for rendering the engine things itself. So those will be exposed along some other APIs, which are really core to the engine, and is gonna add to the philosophy of the engine being customizable to the core. And we'll have better pixel art support because a lot of things were missing from the pixel art, especially having errors and bugs with the edges of the pixel arts. We had improvements with the transparencies, but there still is a lot of issues that could be addressed. And finally, WASM support. The main issue with WASM I had in the past was the build size. So WASM, as you know, is on the web, and web is really hungry for smaller sizes because the smaller sizes always win and are easier to load on the both side, both the server and the clients. So WASM support was not really good with the engine because the build sizes would exceed 5 or 6 megabyte, which is something not acceptable to me. So I will be planning on building WASM support. And with the recent test I had, I was able to reduce the engine size from around 12 megabytes to around 3 or 2 megabytes. So that could be possible to move them to WASM. So uh, probably removing a lot of dependencies that are big, but yeah, we'll try because most of the size is coming from the web GPU and WinIt, which is the two things essential for the engine. So those will be the plans, but we'll see how it goes. These will be for the next release 0.6, and of course a lot of documentation too, which I haven't done still. I should be doing it. But yeah, that was the plans for the engine and the community updates. Thank you for watching. And if you have any questions, feel free to write them up. I'll answer. And the link below is the link to the engine itself, which includes the Discord link. So make sure to join there if you want to see the community updates directly and live.
Awesome. So we do have one question here in chat, and so the question is Nscript on GitHub? It sounds pretty interesting.
I think it is, but probably not. I don't have the link to it myself because the author of the Inscript wanted to announce it himself, but wasn't able to make time for this meetup. So I'll try to talk with him and make sure to join the Discord server so you can speak to him directly if you're interested there to use Inscript.
Okay, that's super cool. So I didn't understand it fully at first, but are you saying that this is like a new scripting language
Yeah,
for just like general scripting, or is it for Blue
yeah.
Engine in particular?
It is a scripting language generally built by a community member, which he is porting now to the engine. So it shows that scripting is possible to be binded to the engine.
Yeah, okay, that's super exciting. I'd love to find out more about that. I know in this space there's been like so Mun has been worked on for quite a while as like a scripting language in Rust. Though like its development is back and forth, and then I don't know if they've exposed their scripting language to any engines. And so yeah, this will be very cool to kind of see. Do you know if it's being written in Rust as well?
It is actually. It is
Okay.
written in Rust. It is being rebuilt too, so a new version of it. The syntax is inspired by AutoAid. I'm not sure what language that is because I haven't used it myself. And I think the Rust language have a lot of good scripting language. For example, Rye, which I've found out recently about, which is really cool language, and a lot of other ports or implementations of, for example, Lisp, like Game Lisp and things like that. It is pretty cool to have scripting language in the engine, but let's see how it goes.
For sure. So another thing I'm kind of curious about. So we showed off, and actually I'm just gonna bring it back up here. Or wait, no, I closed the window. One sec. So the game that was being worked on, you have like tile maps, and you have it's like some animations and some stuff that you can effectively get like a 2D platformer with. So what I was kind of curious about is with that having been implemented, and maybe it's not in the core engine like all that just yet, but with that having been implemented, do you see this as something that someone could take this engine and use it to make a jam game? Like, of course, would be constraints about what the engine has, but do you see anything that is missing to be able to create a full game experience?
Oh yeah. So the engine as not being the for game development, there are some things missing. For example, audio support and networking, but it is actually ready to be used for game jams or game development in general. Because after 0.5 update, there has been a lot of issues that was fixed that was making the engine ready to be used in not production, but like similar to production and closed it. And yeah, the Pablo who made the game and is working on it, he's planning to expose all of it to GitHub publicly and make a library out of it. It was in his plans recently, so I'm excited on how that goes. And I'll be announcing it, of course, when the time comes on the next or maybe the other meetup. So let's see how it goes.
Perfect.
I'm excited.
Awesome. Well, this is super cool. I love seeing it's really cool seeing like the engine updates, but also hearing about what the community is doing, I think is like really like awesome to see the progress. And so yeah, I do hope to see some more cool things coming out from what people are working on. And it's exciting to see like new explorations and what Rust game engines can look like. So Elham, thank you very much for presenting this month. And we'll be back in just a few minutes.
Thank you, everyone. See ya.
All right, so we are back with Sin9, who's going to be showing us Galaxian Trade Empire. Now, Sin9, you're muted right now. You might need to unmute there. But I'm super excited to hear about this project. I just saw it recently on the Rust Gamedev Discord. So, Sin9, I'll hand it over to you to chat about it.
Cool. Thanks, everybody. Yep. So I've been trying to make a devlog for this game over the last month, I guess this was a game jam game started at the beginning of October, and I tried to kind of live devlog the entire creation of it in the actual Rust Gamedev server. So it was around like 200 or so posts inside this channel if you want to check it out. Let's see, kind of a little background about me. I work in modeling and simulation. I'm going to school for modeling and simulation as well. I also, like LM, had finals yesterday. So this is, I'm finally getting to start some of my vacation now. I've been working, making games since like the late 90s or so. I started in QBasic and then went over to FreeBasic and then C++ and now Rust. On my webpage, I have kind of like pictures of like all the stuff I've been working on over time. A lot of them are game jam games. These first 8, this Flow one and Scroll Sunday one. And I like, I'm working on my own minigame framework to help make these kind of games. I'm part of a community that does game jams. It did a lot of the Ludum Dare kind of those not competitions, but challenges, right? And so I really enjoy doing those type of events and slowly making my framework better over time. And so this month I decided to make Galaxian Trade Empire, and this game is inspired by a BBS game back in the 90s. So it's like a text-based game where you go and kind of explore a universe or a galaxy. You trade with at different stations. You can battle other players. You can have planets and things like that. So I wanted to make something similar to that. It is on my GitHub. It is currently, you can play the entire game. This is a public alpha, so trying to get feedback, want to extend it more, make it more interesting. It takes me a few hours to beat it, and I'm trying to kind of improve the later game to make it more interesting. Also on my GitHub, there's a bunch of my other mini games if you want to try those out as well. These are all created. Basically, there's an abstraction layer to a game framework that I made, Rust minigame framework, and I'll talk a little bit about that later. But first, I'd like to go in and just show you what the game looks like. Let this start up here. Give it a second. All right, so there's no title screen in it quite yet. It just kind of dumps you into the Galaxy view. The game is basically made up of like 4 smaller games. One for galaxy exploration, one for planet development. There's basically a trading aspect to it to buy and sell at different ports. And then there's also a combat aspect of it. So here, just starting out, this is my freighter, and I can move my freighter around, go to these different kind of like jump points around the galaxy, go to my home planet and land. And now I'm just in this like planet view where I can do things like controlling the types of labor and work that the population does. So if you have more farmers, you can make more food. If you have more laborers, you can manufacture goods. More scientists, you can do more research, or you can do research things faster. So if I have a bunch of scientists, I could go into research and like pick something I want to research, like agriculture, because I want to be able to make more food, and then start that. And it says it's going to take around 12 years to finish, right? I can also change things I want to manufacture. This gives like an outlook for over the next 100 years, what kind of how much you're going to manufacture. This is a lush planet, so I want more biologics. In this game, the more machinery you have, the more like fighter ships you can build. So add like some more fighters or some more machinery in there, and then ultimately that turns into resource production, which I can take off the planet. Say I'm just going to grab all these resources: ice, fuel, biologics, because I want to go take those and trade them. If there's fighters that have been manufactured, I could take them off the planet here. But basically, I'm just going to lift off, and I'm going to go over to this station over here. And then this starts the basically the third sub game. So you have the exploration, you have your planet building and improving your planets, and then going into the stations to do trading, right? There's a station view. I can do things like see what they're buying and selling. I can spend money. I could sell goods. If I have planets, this TerraLink will show me my planets, and I could go navigate to them. If I've seen a bunch of different markets that are available to me, I can see what the prices are in those markets, so I can optimize what I'm selling and buying at different places to make more efficient money. And then, so right now you can see I only have like a little bit of the universe or the galaxy explored. So I'm just going to go in here and download some nav maps, right? And then if I come back out here, I can see that I'm starting to see more of the galaxy, right? So I'll just do this a few times. And now I can see just different places I could go to. I could go to this planet over here. And then if I wanted to, I could attack this planet to try and take control of it, or get tribute, right? So like kind of get money or resources from the planet. So if I just go in and say attack, right now it's pretty early in the game. So I have this house that I'm going up against has 52 fighter spacecraft, and I only have 12. So the likelihood of winning this battle is incredibly low. But basically, I could navigate, and then the cells here basically show you where you can go to. And once I get close enough, then I'll be able to actually attack. There's some hotkeys in here to make this a little bit faster. This guy right here is probably going to die here immediately because somebody's going to attack him, and there he goes. Right. So basically, this is kind of how combat goes. You want to be strategic about your unit placement, and then if you can get around and land an attack on the freighter, you will immediately cause them to surrender. Right. But you could also try and demand surrender, and of course they're like, no, that's not going to happen. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to offer tribute, and they accept it. So I want to get out of that battle. I had to give up some resources to do that, but that's okay. And just give you another look at going into the station. Now that I've seen more of the galaxy, I'm starting to see more things in the market network where I can kind of buy and sell. So maybe I want to get some ice here and sell it here because there's a big price differential, right? And so that may be an opportunity to make a bunch of money. And then if I wanted to do that, I click on here and it'll basically auto navigate me to that station, and then I could go and buy, say, or they're selling ice, and so say I want to just buy a whole bunch of ice, right? And then go back to somebody who is buying ice, 49. The prices have gone up because there's inflation. As you go around the galaxy, your year ticker starts to tick up. And then once you get up above a certain threshold, the other houses start to attack each other, right? And so the balance in the galaxy starts to change. And right now they won't attack you. You have to initiate the attack, but in the future, I hope to do things like getting ambushed while you're in transit, or having other houses attack your planets and you have to defend them. You can see things like what's in your cargo holds. You can buy fighters at different stations. Let's see. I think that's about, let's see, status here. Yep, so that's basically it. Once you get into the game, the galaxy gets pretty large. There's a lot of places. There's volcanic planets, desert planets, ocean planets, the green lush planets. They have different types of resources that they're better at producing. Some are more strategic than others. And then there's different types. There's like these Federation stations that have different kinds of like the different prices in things like fighters or different deals, and so there's only a few of them. In the future, I hope to be able to like upgrade your freighter so you could carry more resources or carry more fighters, things like that. Potentially have other freighters that you have, and would be really fantastic is to kind of do an online multiplayer thing with this. But yeah, that's about it. The GitHub has an explanation of what the menus are, what the gameplay elements are, some of the hotkeys. All the code is here if you want to check it out. I also have some like little architecture pictures, kind of shows how it's all spread out. Basically, it's really just 5 files, one for each sub game, right? And then one has like the data structures and general utilities. And this is kind of how it plugs into MGFW minigame framework. There's only a few crates in this entire project. Almost all of the code is mine. I did all the ECS, the game. I did the framework. I do use Gluten for input and windowing. It goes out to OpenGL. And then GilRS is in the framework for gamepad stuff. This game only uses keyboard and mouse, though. Basically pushes events up to the game. The game has an update tick that the framework controls, and then it mutates the world, and then that's basically just follows that loop. Pretty straightforward. Any questions?
Yeah, so I think first of all, I just want to mention I had like there's like a game I was playing back in like the early 2000s on the Palm Pilot called so I think this one was based off of Trade Wars, right? The one I was playing was Space Trader, and so it was not exactly the same, but it did remind me a lot of like some similar ideas. Where one of the biggest things you could do with games back then was have a very cool economy system where you'd go between systems and trade resources, and so I definitely love seeing it. It's very reminiscent of that. One thing I was kind of curious about the tech stack here is you mentioned that so you've like sort of built out this engine that does the like the whole loop. Did you build out the UI system as well?
Yeah, I did. So actually in I think it was August or September. I'm going to go over to Discord real quick. I built the UI. I've been working on a little RPG project at the same time. This kind of it's kind of reminiscent of like Final Fantasy 1 time period, and I started working on this UI for it as to create an editor, right? And then basically October came around and it was like game jam time, and so I was like, hey, what can I do that leverages this UI so I can get some mileage out of it, right? And then so I decided to make this game. So basically the UI, I actually really like this pattern. Is something that I did that I I don't think I've seen somebody do. Somebody's undoubtedly done it before, but basically it's a like a procedural grid splitting engine. So you have a like a rectangle, and you can split it horizontally or vertically, and you can split it once or multiple times or at different ratios, and then that returns a structure of more rectangles that you can further split, right? And then as you split them, you can inject UI elements like buttons or text or scroll areas or things like that. And it basically makes it so that you can procedurally hack up your two-dimensional space to make a UI. And then you give, I can actually pull up kind of a, like an example of that. So let's make this big if I can. So like I have a big grid that's a full screen, and I just split it into 3 columns horizontally, and then I split that vertically, and then I'm basically going through my ECS to add UI elements into those splits, right? And what's really cool about this is that I can change these ratios, and everything just auto adapts, right? So if I want to add in more columns, or it's kind of actually, it's kind of reminiscent of like CSS grids, right? So if you want to be able to take a web page and just like dynamically split, but you're not really sure what you want, and you need to get in and just kind of get things set up and feel it out. It's really good for prototyping and exploring how you want your UI to work and feel. And then basically you give it a callback, which can have data or just be an enumeration. And then it's going to, later on in your update loop, you just pull to see what callbacks have been registered, right? And then you just act on those events. So here's kind of an entire menu. I take the screen, I chop it up into splits, and then I add UI components to it and assign them callbacks. And then whenever that gets interacted with, it's just going to create the event, right? So it was a way to like pretty rapidly create complex interfaces like this editor in the span of like an afternoon, you know?
Yeah. And so looking at just like this image here, it does have like that feeling of a UI from like the mid 2000s. Like
Yeah.
I can't think of which ones, but
I
like I
love
look at that. I'm
Yeah, I
thinking,
love double pixels, or like really chunky pixels are like something that and I also like had the problem with the tiles with the black lines, and kind of solved that with like a render buffer. But that plagued me for a while as well. It's like there's this hairline in there, and I really just want my chunky pixels. And then and I've gotten that comment in the past. It's like, hey, it's kind of, you know, like pixelated. I'm like, that's, you know, that's what I like, you know. So especially low palettes, like these palettes only have like, you know, 8 colors or 16 colors or something like that. So that's my what I enjoy from the 90s.
Nice. Yeah, that's super cool. And actually, kind of speaking of, so I did not actually do my research. I did not go and look at your website. It's so cool that you have like such a large amount of sort of like game jams and projects that you've worked on.
Yeah.
And so I definitely have to check this out. But what I'm curious about from here is if your experience of like working on these mini games and working on these systems for quite a long time. So with all that experience, like how do you sort of feel the progression in your ability to either like work on games, or how do you find like Rust in comparison to some of these other like languages that allowed you to do stuff earlier in like the 2000s?
That's a great question. My favorite part of the Rust community is like, well, so I like Rust because I like the challenges of the language itself. I really am a big fan of demo scene, and I've got like some demo scene stuff down here where you're trying to push the envelope of what you can do with like a lot of this stuff is like quick basic, right? This is like really, or like early free basic stuff. Where you're trying to push the envelope of what you can do. And I like Rust because it adds new levels of challenges with the way you write your code. So it's kind of like a new meta challenge that's not like hardware limits. But then I also really like the Rust community itself because it makes me, it brings back memories that I have of like the early 2000s of, you know, web rings and trying to these like really small micro programming communities on the internet, you know, before there was Reddit and things like that. And I feel like the Rust community kind of captures that same thing. It's a great challenge making a game in Rust. It's especially if there's so many game systems that you have to create, and if you don't want to use a crate to do it, you're on the hook to do all of it yourself. And so you really get an understanding of what it's like to build those systems, right? So, somebody was making a comment recently about if you want to make a 3D engine from scratch, it's deceptively simple, right? You once you get into it, you realize that it's incredibly difficult. Like I have this game prompt critical here. 3D action game was written in BASIC, right? And it was written in BASIC like it's almost 20 years ago, right? and it's there's so much that you have to do, and so I like that. I don't use hardly any crates. I really just use crates for the stuff that I don't want to write myself. But I like to write all of it myself to really appreciate what goes into the tech in order to build it. Like I definitely don't think that my way of writing a system is the best way, or even a typical good way. A lot of times by naive implementation is the way to go, and I was just having fun doing it. And I basically what I started is if I just go over to the GitHub, I kind of just started with a tic-tac-toe game. And I was saying, okay, what is the bare minimum tech that I need in order to make a tic-tac-toe game, right? And it's just like being able to have a billboard, right? Textures, and be able to play or have some sort of pixel font in there or something. And then so I started with tic-tac-toe and just slowly built up the complexity of making these games. And I would try and make the entire game in a weekend, right? Or 1 week, like 1 week or less. And the goal there was, what are the critical systems I need in order to create this in less than a week? And where are the friction points that I need to go and improve so that I can, do the leverage the code, right? So basically, so the framework will support being able to explore an idea really rapidly, and get lots of mileage on it, so that I can work out the kinks. It's not really designed for other people to use, but if people want to use it, that's fantastic, and I'll happily answer questions. If there's anything in there you want to take, that's all good by me. I'm just having fun.
For sure. And also just a reminder to everybody, after the meetup, we'll be heading over to the Rust Gamedev Discord. We'll be in a voice chat there for anybody who would like to join and just hang out. Now, one point that I want to add on to what you've mentioned here, Sin9, is sort of with these friction points. I've done this approach before when I was like using the Godot engine, and I'm like, I'd really like to just try putting together like a lot of different mechanics that I find interesting. And so I'd make a demo with each mechanic and kind of put it together. And then in my mind, it was like a lot more of a granular way to, as you said, get over these friction points. And so now that you've worked through some like basic games, you've tried to condense them into a weekend or a week. With the game, so with Galaxian, what are the items now that you're like, oh, these are the largest pain points, or not really pain points, but friction points, now that you have a larger system, a larger game all put together?
Yeah, that's a good question. So now it's mostly like from an engine standpoint. I'm using this UI for the first time, and so there are definitely kinks with the UI that I have to go and fix. So everything it works, but it works because I've intentionally kind of removed certain aspects of the interaction to simplify it, to take out ones that still have problems. So the UI, like the UI library that's built into the framework, definitely needs some work to make it more general use. From like a game engine aspect, there's I would say there's not a whole lot. It does things like the animations, billboards. It has physics in there, but in this game I don't really use the physics. Yeah, it's mostly, this game is really more about exercising the UI, and from like a growing the game standpoint, the wanting to make it more interesting from a gameplay aspect. The one thing that the framework does not have that I really would like to expand on is the ability to do web GPU, right? Or have the games be playable on web. I did put out a request for, if somebody wants to go do that and integrate that in the engine, put it in the collaboration jobs. I give somebody $100 to do that if they wanted to. Ultimately, I'll get to it eventually. But I would say that's like one of the weak areas. That's like a real desire that I have, that make it so that somebody doesn't have to download the game. If they want to try it, they can, or if I have a demo, to be able to play it in the browser. But yeah, the engine itself is it can do a lot of different stuff. It's like we got a racing game, kind of like a mode 7 kind of space shooter, mouse interaction stuff, puzzle games, all that sort of fun stuff.
And I saw recently, well, I guess just this week, you posted Galaxian on GitHub. And so was that just Galaxian, or was that also the engine?
Yeah, that's everything. Everything is it's a good question. So if you go into source, basically it's split into 2 folders. All the engine stuff is in MGFW minigame framework, and then all the game stuff is just in the game folder. And basically you've got your kind of your loop, some enums. The state does most of the heavy lifting with data structures and running the background simulation. And then UI is all the menus and all the menu interactions. Pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
These are big files.
Okay, I was gonna say, I was looking at this and I'm like, did you actually implement a game in like 10 files?
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
okay.
There's this game, Griffin Legend, that I did 14 years ago. I think it's been ported to like 3DX or 3DS.
Oh, really?
It's been
Okay.
ported to like the Scum engine. Like somebody like a community went and ported this to tons of little handhelds and stuff. But
That's so cool.
it's also one file. And so they had to go through and decrypt this giant single file, and it was done in BASIC, right? And so that this one file of BASIC code, and port this to all these different like handhelds and things, which you can go find, but it's not quite that bad. But yeah, for a game that the entire game was made in like 93 hours, and then
Wow.
about 20 hours of once the jam was over, it had about 20 more hours added to it. But yeah, it's basically, I'll clean it up and reorganize it later. But I really,
Yeah, no, it's quite impressive.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's cool seeing the game, but I also love hearing the history behind all of the projects that you've done and sort of where you've gone to get here. So this is super cool. I'll keep an eye on it. So I didn't actually think of using the. I mean, I haven't really checked out the products channel too much, but hearing that there's like a full devlog of content in there is super cool. And so I'll be sure to go and do a read through. And I'm sure that a lot of other people also have sort of a similar thing going on.
And it really, I tried to document kind of my thinking process as well as like where things were getting stuck, what I was exploring I was using a bunch of OpenAI tools to generate avatars and backgrounds. Of course, I'll replace that with human-made art in the future if I decide to sell it. But it's a massive time saver for a game jam game. Yeah, and I'm moving most of this over to my webpage, but you guys got the whole thing right here in the house.
Yeah. Awesome. All right.
Cool.
Well, Sin9, thank you so much for showing this off. This was a ton of fun. I hope to catch you in a future month to either see some updates on Galaxian or see what your next mini game is.
I appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Perfect. We'll be back in just a second with the final presentation. Oh, no, it's not. All right, so we are back with Ziklag, who's going to be talking to us about the Bones engine. And I think this is the first project we've seen on the meetup that's part of like the sort of fish folk ecosystem. And so Ziklag, I'll pass it over to you. I'm super excited to hear about this.
Hey, hi everyone. I'm pretty excited to be able to present here. No, it's It's just been an exciting quest, so to speak, working on Fish Folk, and it's been a long journey through a lot of different technologies and stuff like that. And starting off with, I started off rewriting it in Bevy once I got onto the project after contributing a bit, and then as we kind of adjusted and understood our needs, we ended up making Bones, um, which kind of sits on top of Bevy now for rendering, but otherwise is pretty independent and agnostic of Bevy. And it's just been a lot of learning and a lot of interesting stuff. But glad now to be able to show some of the most exciting developments we've had, which is getting Lewis scripting implemented. And also, so this really goes for our focus on wanting to get stuff moddable, which has been a huge journey, just like everything else. But we finally have assets. We have like a custom asset loader that can hot reload assets and also load asset packs. So it's super easy to install, use your content, and also scripts. So for the first time, we get actually custom programmable items in the game. So I'll start off just by running the game. And we've had a menu for a little bit now. But it's still nice that it's there. We've got, right now we've got 4 fish characters. We've got a couple more that we've just got to re-add to the game uh, that we had taken out earlier for just to scope some changes we were making. But we get in the game and we've got our course with a bunch of items all over the place. So we've got bombs and crates that you can throw and guns you can shoot, all stuff, and there'd usually be more fish and you're fighting each other. And one of the core items we got in here is the Sproinger. It's just this pushes you up when you jump on it or when you step on it. And so this is a great chance to show we have our, in Jumpy, we try to put everything not code into assets. We want to keep everything not hard coded, so that's super easy for like artists and stuff to change it. And here we have in Jumpy assets, we've got our Sproinger, and we do everything in like YAML files for like metadata and configuration. So like if we open Sproinger element YAML, we've got, this is an element is like anything that shows up on the map. So we've got Sproinger's an element, anything that you can interact with, or even the fish are an element, the seaweed's an element, these snails and the crabs these are all elements, just something that you can place on the map. And that becomes really nifty. We have a map editor that still needs to be ported to Bones, but you can essentially place just anything you want on the map. And so we have the element, which just gives you like the name, and then it also sets a data. And so the data is, it pretty much is what describes the element completely. So in Bones we have schemas, which describe, like, think of it like it's kind of like a JSON schema, except it's more like a Rust struct definition, and it describes the data that like some sort of a, it just describes what data you can fit into a struct. And so when you say load this data, it uses the extension, in this case Sproinger.yaml, to know that it's looking for something that matches the Sproinger schema. Inside the Sproinger, we set the atlas, and we use this extension so it knows that's a .atlas YAML. So it loads it with the atlas schema and the atlas set loader. But the fun part is we've got something like the spring velocity here, and we can change that to like 28. And on cue, the game has crashed because there are bugs with the asset loading that we will fix. But anyway, so the Sproinger now is super high because we changed the data, and if we get lucky, this will not crash again when I change it back to normal. And it crashed again. It's probably streaming. Okay, it's performance sensitive. I figured that was gonna happen. But this will work in a second, most likely. There. Okay, so this is the whole point, is hot reload. You leave the game running and you make changes to the file, and without having to reload the game or restart or anything, it loads the changes so that you can do all kinds of stuff without having to do this annoying game restart thing over and over again. So that's the Springer. So another important thing, so that's the Springer, if we look, is inside the jumpy assets. So it's inside the core game. But an important thing is we want users to be able to install their own asset packs. So we go to the packs here. We've got, right now we have a dev pack installed. And so this is already helping us out because we can have a pack that is included in the Jumpy repo and gets loaded while you're, run it in development, but it's not shipped. So we can put stuff that's like work in progress here or just for demoing purposes, like that hat that we're not putting in the game, but is just, it lets you mess around and lets us merge like pull requests and all that kind of stuff into the dev pack and then move it into the game once we're ready, which is very nifty. And so we also have a dev level in here and a blunderbass, which we're going to get to in a second. Before that, though, so I showed you we had 4 skins earlier for the 4-player skins. I'm going to install an art pack, and this one has a couple skins, Inky and Marley, in it, and those are actually made by my brother. So we're going to come back to the game. Now, art packs, installing new packs requires restarts, but we'll be able to do that without restarting later. And we come to the player selection screen, and now we've got a couple new characters just like that. All we had to do is install the pack, and we're going to make a UI pretty soon here for making it real easy to just download and pack. So you could just paste like a URL to GitHub release zip or any zip file, and then it can unzip it and install the pack. So now we are able to jump into the game with the squid character. And that was, so now already we've got an artist can just come in and bring their own pack YAML and uh, their own pack asset pack folder with all the files in it and get it in the game and test it out, and that will be hot reloaded too. And we're going to go to the dev level to show off. So this item is actually 100% implemented in, well, 100% not exactly right, but it's totally implemented in Lua. So like the game had no concept of what a blunderbass is or what it does other than having like a basic bullet abstraction. It knows how to make bullets that fly and have, so bullets are built into Rust, right? But otherwise, this blunderbass item was programmed in Lua. So and we're going to show that here. So just like the Springer though, the blunderbass, because like we have like Lua code that describes how the weapon behaves, what's it do when you pull the trigger and all of that stuff. But we've also got like configuration that we want to have that we want to make easier to change. So we can see here, this is a schema YAML, and these are special. It describes the blunderbass schema. So this is like, you can kind of see it here. We've got a name, full name, which is like a full module path, and then a kind, where does it say it's a struct with a field named cooldown. And so the schema YAMLs, they give you a way to describe the data that the asset loader can go and then check and make sure that you're following that schema. And this also allows you to insert, because we have a custom ECS, it allows you to insert these types into the ECS, and it stores it just like as if it were a Rust type. And then it can be accessed from the script. So here we have blunderbass meta will describe all of the fields that are valid inside a blunderbass or a blunderbass.yaml file. And so we have like the bullet count, the bullet spread. So like we can mess with that right here, and we could say, let's make the bullets not spread out so much at all. And then that's hot reloaded. Now we get a much more straightforward shot pattern. But we also have a Lua script, which is also hot loaded. So this is the implementation of the blunderbass in Lua. And we've got like a bunch of, these are all schema imports. So essentially, these are all types that are registered either in schema YAMLs or that actually come from Rust. And most of these come from Rust. So for instance, entities, element handle, blunderbass meta, that actually comes from this YAML here. sprites. So like the awesome part about the schema system is that if we go to our Rust code, we've got like a Rust struct, this is a bullet, and it has schema, and it also is repc, so it uses a stable memory representation. And that's what lets us do all kinds of fancy casting and otherwise dangerous stuff, is by knowing that the data inside this bullet will be laid out in a stable memory representation. So just by adding has schema, derive, repc, and then making sure that we register the schema here, that instantly allows any Lua script throughout the game to import the schema like this. And then in these Lua scripts, we have we define functions for, so this is like a hydrate function. This is like an ECS system. And we're able to say resources get entities to get the entities resource from the ECS. And we're able to say entities iter with, so iterate over all the entities that have an element handle and a map that are without a map element hydrated component. And so this pattern of programming in interacting with the ECS is very similar to how we do it in Rust. So it's also easy to it's easy to combine both Rust and Lua for things that need Rust performance, or that we want just core and easy to access inside the game, or that for whatever reason needs functionality not as easy to do in Lua, but it's super easy to combine with Lua because they can both interact on the same ECS world. And let's do something fun here, where this is where we on update, and we register our systems here. So we say we want to add this update function to run in the post update stage. But we get a random number resource here. We pull that from up here. We grab our global RNG. We use that. That's why we get this random spread pattern, and where they're not always in the same spot. But we can make that, let's say we want to make that completely even and no randomness. We can just do divided by bullet count, so that each bullet that spawns is evenly spread out. And then we can also, like, one of the funnest things with modding is to be able to do just dumb stuff. Like, we're going to go in here and blunderbass, we're going to set the bullet count to like 20, and we're going to say the cooldown, so like how fast can I pull the trigger, however I want, and make it spread out like more. We can come in here and we can just blast like crazy. And so all of this stuff, or like for instance, we've got a kickback. We can go into the kickback is also in the Lua script. And we can let's comment out the kickback. Set it to 0 here. And that could have also gone in the YAML, because that's a nice thing to be able to set conveniently for different guns. And now I got no kickback. And all of this without restarting the game, assuming it doesn't crash, right? No, we'll fix it. But the awesome part about this is that the Lua script has pretty much full-blown access to the ECS, as long as you annotate your Rust structs with repc and you derive has schema is actually required to stick anything in the ECS. So the ECS is kind of presenting this interface that makes it easy for throughout the game. I can be writing Rust, and then, like, I noticed earlier when I was developing the blunderbass, because I just finished this like yesterday, that the bullet wasn't repc, so I just go and add the annotation, and now I recompile the game, and we've got access to it from Lua. So it's all it's just it's the experience we wanted, because like me and my brothers had like played, and we're trying to mod like a Minecraft type clone at one point, an open source one, and it bugged us because we always wanted to get more power out of the Lua API. It could only do so many different things. And the developers, like, they just hadn't added certain features that the Lua scripters needed. And there was like this division there. what we wanted was to help make it so it's super easy for the developers to not have to think too much about like hand-holding the Lua API and making sure that, oh, make sure we give Lua a way to do this or that, but to just make the ECS, give script pretty much free reign over the ECS so that we don't have to worry too much about Lua being powerful enough to do things. Sometimes, like for the random number generator, I had to add like a little binding here. We can actually look at that, and it's not that bad. So we have, this is our our global RNG resource that we've defined in Jumpy, and it derives have schema, but inside of it is this atomic RNG thing from the TurboRan package, or the TurboRan crate. And this doesn't have Lua bindings. It's not RepRC. So like, how do we interact with it in Lua? Another concept behind the bone schema is that you can add type data just with a type data annotation. And this can be like anything. This allows you to like, we can add type data for components to say, I want to pre-allocate storage for 30 entities because I know I'm only ever going to have 30 entities of this with this component, and I want to pre-allocate memory. Or it's used by the asset loader to mark certain types as being handles so that the asset loader can customize the way it loads based on this type data. So in this case, so it's kind of like allows you to customize the way compatible systems interact with it. So in this case, we add a schema Lua ECS ref meta table. So that's a mouthful, but what it does is it registers this function that returns a Lua meta table. And meta tables in Lua are like what they give you like the ability to add methods that aren't really on the actual type. So it's kind of like a proxy type in JavaScript, or but it lets us essentially add new bindings so that we can say, okay, this function says whenever this global RNG resource pops up in Lua, I want to override its meta table and add this F32 function, which if we undo what we did earlier to take out the randomness, we can see that we're able to call this F32 function to get randomness from this resource. And this is bindings. This is a manual binding code for Piccolo. Piccolo has been a big deal for us. It's a Lua engine written by Kyron in the Rust community. And it has been a huge help because, for one, it's got a fully safe Rust API, which is great. And it runs in WASM just natively. So we didn't have to, like all of this modding stuff actually works other than hot reload, which you'd have to refresh the web page for now. But all of this works in the browser just fine. So modded items, extra skin packs, that can all work in the browser without trouble. So it's a very exciting, and it's been a very awesome to get to, and we've gotten a lot of help from Kyron integrating it and developing any extra features we needed. So that pretty much wraps up yeah, I think that's about it. Any questions?
Awesome. Yeah, so I think a few things that I'm curious about. Well, first of all, I love seeing hot reloading. It's very cool to see the exploration of what can be done with it. And so also just the fact that, so one part of it is you make it easy for artists to use. The second part is you make it easy for the players to add. And the fact that you have like the mod pack, you can copy that in, or I guess the art pack or like the functionality pack. Super cool. So one thing I was thinking is like this ability to very easily add I don't know, like 100 bullets at once or something, in my mind allows for a lot of very, not really emergent behavior, but mechanics that can focus around just like doing stupid stuff. Like now you have 30 bullets, but half of them go off in a weird direction or something like that.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah. And so what I was curious about is like, have you seen any of these interactions while you've been developing or while you've been playing that are just like super cool because you can have so many weird things happening together?
Well, one thing that was kind of funny is yesterday when I'm working on the blunderbuss, I accidentally, like, the Lua throws an error while it's trying to spawn bullets, and then I start jumping around. I might even be able to induce it again, but watch if I take out I take out a parentheses or something just to add a syntax error. And then I come back to the game, and okay, it's not working. But oh no, I don't.
I love how it's just like, we'll just reintroduce this issue from yesterday, and then
Yes.
we'll have some funny things happen.
Okay, there.
Wait, I think I saw a picture of this.
So
Okay, and I saw this, and I'm like, this could be its own interesting thing. Like maybe you don't see the player,
exactly.
but that like the player's invisible, but you can see like how they move around, like what their path is.
So like, and we were thinking, okay, wait, we could use streamers or something. And like, okay, I didn't have kickback yesterday, but it's kicking me back every frame now too. So it's like, so that stuff is hilarious and fun.
Yeah.
And that's when like we had this experience when we were modding Star Wars Battlefront, and we're looking at the like the UV unwrap of the player. It's a flat image that has all the stormtroopers on it, and we wanted to give him like a gauntlet, and we're trying to find his arm guard, and we couldn't figure it out, and we placed like big pink text arm guard on the font somewhere, and then we're like, where is it? And then we look on the behind of all of the stormtroopers was arm guard because we got it wrong. But it was just like, it's fun to like all of the the stuff that you're not expecting, and then just being able to experiment with it is just it's a big deal, and it's like it makes you want to make something. And what we like got into Battlefront modding, and then we would get stuck because we couldn't go further. Like it wasn't documented. There was no way for us to like add these, like we're imagining all this gameplay, and there's just no way for us to add it. But the cool part now is, or with like an open source game, is that you can mod it, and if you can't do something with modding, you can go and you can do whatever you want with the source code. And then also wanting to make it so that modding again kind of has this implicit power that the developer's not having to work to make they're not having to work to make the mods like give them the ability to change major stuff in the game. And like we don't know what you could do with the scripts at this point. Like you can do anything. It's like you could come and hijack the way these fish move with another mod and have mods fighting each other for control over something. It's like anything could happen, which is cool.
Yeah, and it's almost like with some of this, it's not undefined behavior, but it's just like behavior, erratic behavior, whatever is stuff that's working together in weird ways, and then you see that weird way. Yeah, exactly. It all comes together and then makes something new. So I'd love to kind of see what someone who like explores that a lot and makes either some mod or some game mode or whatever. Like I think one of my favorite things is in like the massive like Among Us rage or whatever, like people would take this base game that hardly had any settings for you to change, impose their own rules, make a few tweaks, and then play new game mode with their friends. And so I think seeing that possibility in these games, or for someone who's playing with their friends to just go in and make a quick change that hot reloads for everybody, it would be super cool to see. Or I mean, okay, here's the other thing, is like, what if you as a player every round or something you got to make a tweak to one of the numbers, like you get 3 different numbers you can change, it's like there's so much you can do because it's hot reloaded.
And that's another thing is like we had a game map editor, and all we really have to do is port the UI. But that was a big deal because the editor was you can click and drag everything. Like you're actually it's not like a edit and then play mode. You're editing, and you can still control the player. You can erase blocks under your feet. You can add new items just like that. And potentially we can even do that with multiplayer is something that could be done too. And we were thinking of with the asset system too is letting potentially adding more like these YAML files. You've got like settings in here. You could edit these settings just right in the UI and to change stuff, or even we could potentially add a Lua editor. Like there's a lot of possibility, and then even syncing that over the network. There's a lot of possibilities.
I don't think that's like, has hot reloading in like a live game over the network really been done before? Like you can make small tweaks here and there, but the thing is like, are there many games where you can edit so you can tweak numbers, but can you add functionality or like change scripts over the network? That is a very interesting idea.
And that was one nice thing about obviously it was work, and we're still working out the kinks, and it's crashing on reload. But we can with having our own asset loader and our own asset system, it's allowed us to make these decisions for to account for things that maybe other people don't need, and it would be a lot harder to work into a different
Yeah.
asset design. But we've kind of got now that we've done it, we've got the freedom to go and say, okay, like already we're trying to put stuff in so that you can sync assets from across the network, because like we played some games like Mindustry, like me and my brothers, and it's like it's annoying when you have to manually like copy the zips for the mods to each other's computer and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly.
So having that game just say, okay, I know that you need these files, I'm going to sync them over to you, and you just load the mod from each other, and then potentially even hot reload the mod from each other. There's a lot of realm to explore here, and not like a monumental amount of work, I don't think. It's a lot of work. All of this has been a lot of work.
Yeah, of course.
And taken a lot longer than might have thought. But it's still all within the, like, there's not a lot that we haven't done that's like a huge question mark. Is it possible? So it's pretty exciting to get to a point where we're demonstrating a lot of the end goal here. So,
Yeah. And just kind of talking about this development and building, one thing I was curious about is you mentioned that you're building on top of Bevy. And so what does that relationship look like when, for example, Bevy does an update, or you want to tie into some systems and go a little bit deeper than the surface?
So right now, we kind of have this concept where like the Bones world encapsulates all of this game logic, because all of it's essentially, and it's snapshotable. We needed that for like rollback, fast forward. I can't demo the snapshot, or I can demo the snapshot if it doesn't crash. So I took a snapshot, and then you can pop over. There's some things that aren't done yet, but it just needs a little bit of fixing. But the idea that this Bones world kind of captures your game and holds the kind of I guess a simpler version of the game. It keeps like this is a sprite, it goes here. This is a tile map. These are all my tiles. This is the tile set texture. You're not thinking about rendering this, you're not thinking about triangles, you're not thinking about shaders. And then that's like at the, we call the Bones framework level of it. And then we take the Bones Bevy renderer and we feed it this Bones world, and it just renders it. And we have like, it's not actually that much. We just have like one file that goes through, and it loops through all of the entities and all the sprites, and it makes sure it creates a Bevy sprite for it so that it gets rendered. And the cool part about that is that it creates this division in the complexity set. If you have something fancy rendering thing, it can kind of sit behind the simple version, and you can just make simple entities and components for it. So say you wanted to do like this, like, you know, where you do this, the black circle that grows and shrinks in on some part of the screen or something like that for a transition. Like that might require a custom shader and some stuff just to get working, or maybe even if it's just an image with a hole in it that you zoom in and out. But you could make a component in a system in Bones that would make it easy to control that. Then you drop the repr C annotation on it, and now Lua scripts can modify it and control it super easy. And then that's abstracted away from the rendering details of exactly how you get that zoom in out effect. And then it also makes us Bevy agnostic, so that like right now we really don't have any big requirements for rendering. We've got sprites, we've got tile maps, and we've got like debug lines, like tons of different. Oh, and then eGUI. eGUI is another part. That's what we do our UI with. So it's like if you can render eGUI, sprites, tile maps, etc., then you can make a renderer for Bones, and that's like it's not that's not like super difficult to do. I've done a couple 2D rendering stuff, so like we might have our own renderer later if that became useful, but right now we might as well just build on Bevy, let them do the windowing and all of that details too. But we're free to change it. And like actually that's another project that might come onto this meetup at some point. Almost made it this week but didn't. They were thinking about using Bones for like a sand type rendering game. And there was the question of, okay, so in sand rendering, Bevy's not getting you much, because you're pretty much wanting to put all those little pixels on the screen how you want specifically. And it's pretty much custom rendering, custom GPU calls at that point to get it efficient and super performant. So Bevy's not helping, and they're like, can you still use Bones? And they're like, well, yeah, we could still use Bones, and then we just do the rendering ourselves instead of using Bevy. So while for Fishfolk it's easy, we would get cross-platform, we get the web build automated for us and stuff like that by using Bevy. At the same time, they can, for that project, they could feel free to swap out the rendering backend and still keep this networkable was part of the goal with Bones. And so the Bones world would be networked, and we keep this simple representation, and then the complicated rendering backend or whatever it ends up being can stay separate. And then while the rest of the gameplay type important stuff is moddable, networkable, and just easy.
Okay. Yeah, this is very cool to see. Like I've I've seen Fishfolk over time, but I have not gone and like really taken too much of a look at the code base itself. So it's been very interesting hearing about all the progress here, and I definitely hope to hear more about what's been going on, and also like if y'all have like community games and like stuff that's being worked on like downstream, definitely it would be super cool to hear from them about what's going on as well.
Yeah, and we're hoping Bones kind of just recently got ready for like other games to use it and stuff like that, and hopefully hoping that that can help, let some help share the work so that we're not, redoing things and stuff like that. And but yeah, it's very exciting.
Awesome. Well, yeah, Ziklag, thank you so much for coming and presenting Bones. It was a lot of fun, and I hope to catch you in a future month.
Okie dokie. Thank you.
All right. Okay, so we are at the end of the meetup. I'm just going to throw my screen back up here now. This window right here. So one thing I did want to mention, we showed this game off not at the beginning of November, but at the beginning of October, I think. Maybe it could have been November, but anyways, Tana is now open, or it's released on Steam. Released on December 1st, and so definitely go check it out if you like. Just a reminder, this game is built in Bevy. Puzzle Squiz developer, they did some of their own rendering. I very much like this aesthetic. You're like in an underground bunker, and you're going and doing some like logic puzzles and stuff like that. So Puzzle Squid came and demoed it, but then we also got to I got to get like a demo key, and I played through some of the early stuff. I had a ton of fun, made some suggestions on some stuff that could be improved, and I think Puzzle Squid mentioned that they put that in. So it's pretty reasonably priced. It's like I feel like that's probably $5 American. And so yeah, if you want to try out some Rust game on Steam, definitely check out Tenet. Gamedev.rs. And so yeah, just as a reminder, at the end of each meetup, we hop into the Discord server. Let me just copy the link to that. I'll post it in chat here. So if you're interested in coming and chatting with some of the people who presented maybe, or you just want to talk about what projects you've been working on, feel free to hop into the Hangouts channel there. And I'll be posting the... I started playing something. I don't know what that is. Okay. So anyways, we will be back next month with another meetup. Well, I guess that'll be next year. And so we will see all of you then. Thanks for coming out.